Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. In the studio with us is Nasreen Sheikh. She is the founder of the Empowerment Collective, empowermentcollective.org, a national speaker and global advocate for women's empowerment. Her Twitter handle is Resilient Her. There's also the website Nasreen Sheikh, NASREENSHEIKH.org, and then also the local women's handicrafts.com. And we'll get to all that stuff. Nasreen, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Tom, for inviting me here.
So glad to have you with us. You were born in a little village with no electricity, no running water. Just absolute utter poverty. You were, as a child, you worked in textiles.
Right, yeah. So I come from very, very small village, very small rural village on the border of India and Nepal, which is not even documented, which means like people who born in that village or dies in the village, the world does not know about them. And in which condition they live, the world don't know about it. So every people who born in this village, we have no any document. So therefore, I don't know how old I am. And I can guess maybe 28, 29, but I have no idea when my birthday is. So in my village, when I was very young, I witnessed that female rights was very, very oppressed. Every single girl, like when I say every single girl, means every single girls, they were being forced into marriage by the age of like 15, 16, 18. And if they would turn by 21 or 22, they considered too old to get married. So it was like kind of like a religious belief system or stigmas of this village that every parents, as soon they would have girls, they would arrange for their marriage all their life from the day that she borns, like she's treated differently. And not only that, I saw a lot of atrocities happening against women, and many of the women were like being hurt. But one of my aunt, she was being murdered because she spoke up and she was loud woman. And one of my village aunt also, she was so oppressed that she burned herself. And I was around 7 or 8. And when I was like still very young, I witnessed that my own older sister, she was arranged into marriage when she was only 12. And I saw her crying, and I saw her tears and how scared she was. And I asked my mom, like, why you are making her married? She's crying. And she said that, well, this is how it works. I did it, my mother did it, and now your sister is doing it. Someday you will have to do it too. This is how our society works. Like, I don't have any word to say. So when she said that, someday I will have to do it, that triggers me. And I felt like, oh my God, after my sister, I'm right now 8 or 9, but after my sister, I'm going to be the next. And so I started to feel, and I was looking for, I became very curious. And I had so many, like I was looking for, is there anybody who's doing things differently? And I didn't have any role model, anyone to look up. And then I would ask my mom questions, and she would say, don't ask questions because you're not allowed to ask any questions. And then I started to slowly getting isolated by the society, and I put a lot of my time going to the forest and going to in the nighttime. In my village, we didn't have any electricity, no cars, no hospital. But in the nighttime, the star would be very intense. Like all the stars would like give me a goosebumps when I would look up into the sky because there was no electricity. And, slowly I felt more connected to the nature, and I started to pray more. And I decided by the age of 9 that I want to leave the village. And I decided to leave the village when I was around 9. And came to Katmandu, which is the capital city of Nepal. And I found myself working with 6 others in 10 by 10 room with no clean drinking water, with in my food, I would always find a thread. We were working 7 days a week for 12 to 15 hours a day. I was doing single stitch for thousands and thousands of times. And I felt like a machine. And I was thinking that I'm going to find a freedom for myself, but I found myself in another trap. And I didn't. All I had is that I was keep being told by agent that I just need to keep finishing the pile of clothes that he was keep bringing, and it was 600, 700, 800 pieces a week, and we had to finish it no matter what. So we would wake up around like sometime 4 a.m., sometime 5 a.m., and work all the way to like 9, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and still the pile of clothes are still left. And we knew that if we don't finish it, we will not get paid for all the work that we have done. So we have to finish it. So the people in that sweatshop, they used to give me hot pad of water that I could put in my eyes so I can stay awake. And they would put loud music on it so I can be awake and finish that task. But in that time, I started to cry, and I started to talk to the shirt again and said that to that T-shirt that I was making, that whoever is going to wear these T-shirts, I hope they can feel my energy, I hope they can feel my tears, I hope they can feel my blood, and it became my prayer. So every shirt I sewed, I prayed, and literally I felt like I was putting my tears, which is my suffering, into that shirt. So now, in 2015, when I came to America and I walked to these department stores and realized where my clothes are being sold, I feel like people are consuming suffering unknowingly.
Wow, that's an extraordinary story. By the way, you have a YouTube talk out there too that people can find.
Yeah, TED Talk, TEDx Talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry, on YouTube. It lives on YouTube. So Nasreen, tell us about the Empowerment Collective and local women's handicrafts.
So when I was around 12, my sweatshop got closed. You know how fast fashion comes and it goes. When that happens, it affects the people like us who are the poorest of the poor. And then my sweatshop get closed after 2 years of operating. I had only two choices: either go back to the village and get forced into marriage just like my sister, or find for another sweatshop. I decided, so in that time, decided that I will go back to the village because it was much more safer. But in that time, while I was preparing myself to go back to the village, I became for a week like almost like a street kid. And I would watch all these students going to the school, and that caught my attention because I was only around 12, and I wanted to be just like a normal student, wanting to go to school, have a book, have a pen, and have a shoes, and just go to the school. And I couldn't. My reality was so different. So one day I was sitting on the street watching the student going to the school, and then one of the dog comes and sniff on me, and behind this dog is kind person, and he decided that I asked him that if he can teach me, and then he became my teacher for the last 10 years, and I started to learn about human rights. I started to learn about what is women's empowerment. I started to learn about everything that I'm supposed to know as a human being. And when I was around only 13 and I didn't have any document, I decided to get a loan, and it was a big story again. It took me almost 3 months period of time to get $10 loan, which is 1,000 rupees. And finally I got that loan. I bought my machine and I started to make the craft that I had a little bit of skill from that sweatshop. And I started to make my own crafts, and I started to sell to the other stores. And when I started to do on my own, I saw the difference that I was making. Before I was getting less than $2 a day, working for 12 to 15 hours a day. Now I was working 8 hours a day and I was getting like $5 a day. And that brought a huge economic independence in my life. And slowly in Nepal, there's only 2% women own the business, and almost 85% of women are victim of the sweatshops. We don't even have the exact data or research on it, so we don't know, but that's my guess. I have this research that our organization done. And so I decided that I want to teach more women skills and ethical fashions. That I love fashion, and fashion is a beautiful thing, like creativity, but at the same way, it needs to be more ethically and produced in a way that it's coming from the creativity and love and connection, not from the the oppression. So local women's handicraft is basically a place for a woman who cares about sustainability and eco-friendly. We go to these big factories and we collect all these leftover fabrics and we weave in 100-year-old loom. All of our products are very, very like eco-friendly and natural hemp and beautiful embroideries. We make sure that all the women who works for us, they have health resources, education, living wage. And our empowerment collective, when I came to America for the first time in 2015, and I met with all these awesome women here in America, and they gave me hope big time, because I didn't had any hope when I was in Nepal. I was like, oh my God, this world is going to get into a really miserable place. But when I came to America and I talked to these conferences, and when I see all these powerful, amazing women coming together, it gave me hope. So I decided to register a nonprofit organization based in Chicago, and we are 501c3. And my goal is to raise fund to rescue these women who are the victim of the sweatshop. And we rescue them, we bring them to our training center, and we give them training up to 4 years. So in that 4 years, they learn who they are, they learn skills, they learn about basic educations, and they learn about their health. And in that every day, 9 to 5, coming for 4 years, they're able to heal their trauma, and they're turning their trauma into power, and becoming advocate in the community and also social entrepreneurs. And like that, we have helped since 2008 almost hundreds of women, and my dream is to help 10,000 women by 2025.
The situation in Nepal that you were describing, and that's where you went when you were in Katmandu. How unique is that relative to other countries around the world?
Like in what ways?
In terms of child labor, basically, and sweatshop labor.
Yeah, I feel like Nepal is one of the least developed country in Asia, Southeast Asia. We are one of the poorest country, and we don't have much resources, and we don't have much system set up yet. So a lot of these sweatshop, they take advantage of the people, and we still have 1.6 million child labor in Nepal. All over the world, we have more than 200 million child labor. And these the governments and NGOs are trying very hard, but it's like it's really difficult because the big corporates, like every time, like in the shop, like we have 50% discount, 80% discount, but we never talk about that. Hey, there is 1.6 million child labor that might be contributing into all this T-shirt that is available for $5 or $10,
Right.
And people, like, how many people even knows that one T-shirt takes almost 300 gallons of water to make, and that 300 gallons of water one person can drink for years. So how can, like, if one person wear their one clothes for extra 6 months, we will eliminate 1.5 million cars in a road, so there is like fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world. So not many people knows that, and I feel like people need to become more responsible and aware, and information and knowledge is power. But I feel like at the same time, all the global leaders, especially the corporation leaders, they need to come and advertise and market the real message, and the real truth. And I think that will help our planet, not only the human, but also our environment and other species that we are destroying. Like in Nepal, we used to have a beautiful river that used to run through the city. And just in my lifetime, when I came in the beginning, the river was still running. But now when I walk through the river, I literally have to cover my mouth, and because it stinks so bad, all those industrial waste, human waste, are passing through that river. So it's becoming filled, it's becoming rotten, and right now people in Katmandu, there is smoking 10 cigarettes a day, which means like the pollution is really, really bad. Yeah. So I feel like in this, we all are together, and this is a one world, and how we all can connect through the products that we buy, because everybody needs to wear their shirt, everybody uses their toothbrush, everybody uses their phones, the food, but we are not connected. We don't know where it comes from, which condition that is made, And if we bring that attention, I feel like it will heal our planet in such an amazing way.
You were talking with Nasreen Sheikh, who is the founder of the Empowerment Collective, empowermentcollective.org, and also women's local handicrafts.com. And I'd like to, you were talking about just a moment ago about how the second most polluting industry in the world is fashion. How there are, just in Nepal, about 1.5 million
1.6 million.
1.6 million children working in this, and 200 million worldwide that we know of.
Yeah,
right.
That's that is what we think, but I was undocumented. So like my villages are undocumented, so we don't know how many more are there. So that is why I feel like people who are educated and aware, it's our responsibilities to know and ask questions, because I feel like 10 years ago, if somebody would have asked question where my clothes come from, these company would have been responsible. And if they would have been responsible, they have been tracked me, they could have found me in that sweatshop. And I didn't had to live my life with trauma, because whenever I think of my childhood, I just have tears and, suffering and pain. So I feel like those people who are stuck in those darkness, they are looking up to us, because we have that information. And many people in the villages, we didn't have any electricity and no information, and we think that this is our life, normal life, but we are being heavily oppressed. Like when I came to America in 2015, that is when actually I realized that I was a child labor. Before that, in Nepal, it was so normalized that I didn't even understood the term of child labor in the sweatshop.
Right. So if I walked into a store in the United States and that's selling clothing and looked around, and what percentage of the clothing that I'm looking at in a typical store in the United States is made with child labor? America imports almost $3 trillion of products that contains sweatshop and child labors. Per year?
Yeah.
Wow.
$3 trillion
so,
of
I mean,
products.
our entire GDP is only $20 trillion. So that means that the vast majority of the clothing that we're...
No, it's like products. So it's like clothing, but also like other supplies and stuff, all these different types of products.
So all kinds of things are being distributed.
Yeah, just to catch up on that, like my father, he worked as a sweatshop person for the car industry as a welder. He made parts of car, and he did welding, and his working condition was so terrible, and he has a heat in New Delhi for like almost 100 degrees, and he worked outside with the heat, and then he lost his mind that before I was even born. So